In 1969, as the Beatles were getting ready for their rooftop performance in London, John Lennon approached an engineer and inquired about the possibility of having a home studio constructed for him. Edward Veale, a local of Hertfordshire, was a familiar face at the Savile Row recording studios around the time that the Beatles were producing successes like Get Back and Let It Be. From his offices on the other side of the street, he would frequently receive calls requesting assistance with the Beatles' recording studio in the basement. Mr. Veale would eventually build studios for all three of the Beatles, but he started with John Lennon's first. The Beatles haven't topped the UK singles chart with a song since 1969, but they've done it again with Now and Then. Mr. Veale has been doing some introspection over his connection to Liverpool's most beloved children. Mr. Veale, who is currently 82 years old, asserted that he saw himself in the 2022 Get Back documentary that was directed by Peter Jackson and taped in the basement of the Applecore studio. Fans know the engineer from Hatfield best for his work on the music video for Imagine, and he has fond recollections of his time spent working at John Lennon's home in Tittenhurst Park, which is located near Ascot in the county of Berkshire. He is under the impression that he invented the first home recording studio in Europe, and it was called Ascot Sound Studios. After recording his debut album with the Plastic Ono Band at Abbey Road Studios the year prior, John Lennon was ready to start writing songs for his second solo album, Imagine, which he planned to record at Abbey Road. He would record during the night, and then leave notes with directions for Mr. Veale, who would finish erecting the studio the following day. They would get together in the afternoon, and pass the time talking and laughing. The engineer recalls being present at the sessions in which John Lennon, his wife Yoko Ono, and producer Phil Spector worked on the songs that would later be included on the album Imagine, which was published in 1971. In 2003, actress Lana Clarkson was murdered at the home of music producer Phil Spector in Hollywood. Spector, who was responsible for the production of a large number of popular albums beginning in the early 1960s, passed away behind bars in the year 2021. Followers of the musician will be familiar with the studio because it was extensively filmed for various documentaries concerning the making of Lennon's first two albums. Ringo Starr and George Harrison, two former members of the Beatles, were present for a number of these recording sessions. In these films, Mr. Veale is occasionally seen working or tinkering with something. When John and Yoko moved to New York City, at the end of 1971, they sold Ringo the 72-acre Grade II listed home that they had previously owned. Mr. Veale was given the responsibility of disassembling John Lennon's cherished home studio and transporting all of its components to a new location in New York. As a result of the failure of Lennon's plans for a new studio in the United States, Mr. Veale was given the responsibility of dismantling everything and reinstalling the equipment so that Starr could use it before it left Tittenhurst. Beginning in 1972 and continuing until Harrison's passing in 2001, Mr. Veale and George Harrison worked together on his home studio located in Henley-on-Thames, Oxfordshire. Harrison and Mr. Veale traveled to New York in order to acquire some stained glass windows for the new facility. Harrison also dedicated a piece of his Friar Park estate for the studio. Mr. Veale's time spent working with a member of the Beatles is one of the most vivid memories he has, according to Mr. Veale, who added that people in the United States would approach him and question whether or not it was really George. Other performers, such as Roy Orbison and Bob Dylan, two of Harrison's comrades in the Traveling Wilburys, frequently visited the studio. Mr. Veale stated that in order to keep his attention focused on his company over the course of several decades, he refrained from developing very personal relationships with the individuals with whom he collaborated. On the other hand, he picked up the skills necessary to interact with Harrison and his friends.